Back after a week off. I'm Greg Bishop, and it is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. What did I miss while I was out on vacation? Of course, truncated show this morning, as one of the things I missed dominated the airwaves early in the morning hours over in the UK with Queen Elizabeth dying. I think as we were boarding a plane, I'd seen the headlines that the royal family was starting to visit the Queen, who was fallen ill, and the 96-year-old matriarch ended up passing away just a few days later. And today's the funeral. It's a holiday over in the UK with some people concerned it's not just a bank holiday, but you've also got people who are looking to do routine health operations. Procedures or treatments, and those apparently are not going to be happening. But that seemed to dominate global news. Some of the other things that at least I saw pop up, and I need your help to help me better tune in on what I missed while I was gone. All right, so I need you to do that. Call in live, 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. Some of the other things that I heard while I was out, and just, I'll look at headlines every once in a while, not nearly to the efforts that I put in when I'm actually at work. But one of the other things I saw, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. The guy who raised all kinds of questions about the 2020 election. Apparently his cell phone was confiscated, and there's an ongoing investigation there. So that's kind of interesting to see, at least on national politics. But then you get into state politics, and as we talked with State Senator Darren Bailey last hour about the issues of the Safety Act and just how much that has now become a prominent issue in the minds of voters. And how that was the case. What happened? Why all of a sudden are people so interested in the Safety Act? When this thing passed a year and a half ago on January 13th of 2021 in the early morning hours, and there were serious concerns then. So that's been elevated in the political conversation, and even locally, super locally here in Springfield, we had the Martin Luther King Jr. statue that was toppled while I was gone. An investigation ongoing there. You had the double homicide as well, a couple of other different types of acts of violence throughout the area. But I need you to help me sort out what I missed while I was gone. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Greg.
Hey.
Hope you had a good time on vacation.
It was.
I enjoyed listening to your substitute all the way up until his Nikki Budzinski interview. I think it was last Friday. That can only be described as fawning. I just expect more from WMAY. I mean, it seems to me, wouldn't you agree that in a district like that, the first question you would ask is, how does it feel running in the most gerrymandered district in the country?
I mean, that has to be recognized.
And you're not even from the district.
Yeah. That has,
number two,
go ahead.
Wouldn't you ask a question like, how are you different than Nancy Pelosi? I mean, that would be a softball question for her. Instead, we got, if you were an abortion flower, what flower would you be? I was very disappointed, and I know you would have done a better job. So
I didn't hear the interview, so
you carry on.
I didn't hear the interview, so I can't speak to it. But thanks to Patrick Finkston, who did fill in while I was gone. But I mean, listen, you have to recognize when talking about the 13th congressional district just how gerrymandered it is, and that is something that at least I've talked to both of those candidates about in the past, both Regan Deering and Nikki Budzinski. And that has to be brought up. That has to be something that's first and foremost, because, listen, there's a lot of rural voters that are lumped in with major metro areas in that district. And it was drawn by Democrats at the Illinois State House specifically to give it a Democratic advantage. So we'll see ultimately what happens.
Or a Democrat that doesn't live in the district.
Well, and again, I don't know.
I mean, I'm not against Budzinski particularly, but I mean, Wouldn't that be the obvious question? How could he not bring that up?
I don't know her address. I'd have to cross-reference her address with whether or not it's in the district, but regardless, she's on the ballot for that particular district. Appreciate the phone call. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. You can always email me as well, bishoponair@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, which, if you do follow there, I was kind of absent from social media the past week. Kind of by design. I didn't want to have to deal with any of that. So expect to see a deluge of of vacation videos from Mount Zion, from Zion National Park, from Bryce National Park, from Page, Arizona, and even in Las Vegas. Which that was a bizarre trip. I'll tell you about that a little bit later on this week. But let's get to your phone calls. What did I miss while I was out on vacation? Good morning. You're on WMAY. Hey, you're on the air. Good morning. You got to pick up the phone and not listen to the radio. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Are you doing one of those KTTs or something?
Hi. It sounds like they're having a different conversation altogether with somebody else. That's all good. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. I think something else that happened while I was gone as well deals with those migrants who are coming across the border illegally, claiming asylum in Texas. Texas not able to handle all of them, so they're continuing to send them to Chicago, Washington, D.C., and elsewhere. And this is kind of fascinating because of ultimately, you know, the issue in Chicago, where you've got the suburban mayors pretty upset because not only is Chicago not handling them, they're putting them into some of these suburban areas. And here's a clip from Fox News earlier this week, earlier last week, where they talked with one of the candidates for Congress, who's also a mayor from Chicago suburb, Keith Pacal, and they talked about the migrant issue and just how it's being handled by the state and by the ongoing efforts to shift these migrants all over the place
into her city. So she went ahead and forwarded them on to another suburb there in near Chicago. And this is the mayor, Gary Grasso. I'm sure you probably know him. He's from Burr Ridge, Illinois. He was a recipient of some of these migrants. He didn't get a heads up. Here's what he said.
It's just the arrogance of the state, just presuming they can do what they want. They invite people to come to this state, and then they just willy-nilly put them in the suburbs without even giving us the courtesy of letting us know.
What would you do if she sent some of the migrants to your town?
Well, first and foremost, so I ran against Gary Grasso in the congressional race for the primary, so I definitely know him. And, you know, and Lori Lightfoot they've established a sanctuary city, and then migrants are sent there, and then they immediately ship them to a suburb. So if they came to our suburb, the first thing we have to do is make sure that those migrants are housed humanely. We're not going to put them back on a bus like cattle. That's just inappropriate. And to treat people like that, regardless of their circumstance, is just plain wrong. So we have to take care of those people, make sure they're safe first, but then think about keeping our community safe in the fact that those people, as we know, are not properly vetted, and then we turn around and we have a law that doesn't allow people to be kept behind bars. What in the world could possibly go wrong with all of those factors being put together?
So Keith Pacal, he's a mayor who's looking to get into the U.S. Congress, raising issue about the humane treatment of these migrants, but also seeming to work in that Safety Act issue as well as to something that could compound the problems after January 1st. So the migrant issue was something else that I missed while I was out on vacation, but I need you to tell me what else there is. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning.
Hey.
Hey, I heard Migrants Vineyard is also nice this time of year.
Martha's Vineyard. Yeah, that was an interesting one that I saw too, and especially the the fact that apparently there aren't many hotels in Martha's Vineyard where a lot of the elite go and vacation. They buy homes there, but they don't really want anybody else there, right? So a lot of the criticism is that these political elites, these entertainment elites, these news elite, they're all about welcoming cities. They're all about saying, hey, these big urban metroplex areas, they need to be welcoming cities. But when it comes to their vacation area, not so much. So apparently Florida's governor has been busing some migrants up to Martha's Vineyard. And I saw one headline that there's apparently going to be a criminal investigation. Not necessarily a criminal investigation, but a lawsuit filed by one of the migrants who says they were duped in going to Martha's Vineyard. But you would think Martha's Vineyard, with as rich of an area it is, they would have the means to take care of these migrants with high quality services. But it gets down to this issue of NIMBY. Not in my backyard. And while you've got some of the elites saying, hey, we need to be open and welcoming, when it happens to them, they're not too open and welcoming. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Well, good morning, Greg. Glad to hear you're back. It's amazing that they can accommodate in Martha's Vineyard over 200,000 guests on the season of, tourists. The island only really houses 17,000, but they can't find a bed for anyone. The amazing thing is how easy it is, and they proved this, to call in the National Guard, militarized National Guard at a moment's notice to move people along, these riffraff,
Well, they're human beings, and I mean, I think that needs to be front and center. Some of them are legitimately seeking asylum, and they need care. But the problem is, in Texas, they don't have the means for the flood of migrants that are coming across. And these areas like Chicago, Washington, D.C., Martha's Vineyard, now they're saying we're not border communities, but we're being turned into them. What do you think the border communities are feeling right now?
Border communities are feeling like they're being, I think that one, I think it was CNN or somebody, they said that it's kind of like taking your trash and dumping it around the neighborhood is how they referred to it. And that's the Democrat or the liberal side, referring to these people who come to this country illegally as trash, or basically referring to them in the same manner.
I didn't hear that comment from anybody on CNN, but regardless, we have to rise above that type of rhetoric. These are human beings. There are proper ways to vet these individuals. There are proper ways to ensure that the border is secure. And I think that the criticism not necessarily should just be on Greg Abbott from Texas or Ron DeSantis from Florida or any of these other border communities that are being deluged with migrants, trying to find a way to deal with this. You can disparage them all you want, but what about the open borders? Why is that not something that's being taken care of? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, Greg, I wasn't going to talk about that. I figured you knew, but the thing that gets me is that Chicago and a lot of these places declared themselves sanctuary cities. So what's the problem with us taking people to a place that's supposed to be a sanctuary for them? That's the one thing that kind of gets me is that if we're going to have these people come across the border, we know Texas is overwhelmed by them. The hospitals in Texas are overwhelmed by them. I have a brother-in-law who lives down there. He's telling me how bad it is down there. He works as a veterinarian. He's like, you have no idea how many people at the hospital are basically people that have come across the border, and they're sick with tuberculosis. They're sick with COVID. They're sick with just 2/3 to 3/4 of our hospitals just filled with people who are basically aliens that came in up from wherever they came from. He says, we need help, and everybody keeps ignoring it.
Yeah, and meanwhile, you've got National Guard that are being deployed in the Chicago area and Martha's Vineyard and elsewhere. What about the National Guard down in Texas? Why not try to help down there and get the border secure and to process them properly there instead of just giving them a sheet saying, here's your court date, hopefully you come back. I don't know if you will, but hopefully you come back.
What killed my wife is we dropped them off, and Lori Lightfoot screamed and hollered, oh, you can't just drop them off without telling me. and then she shipped them off to Elkhart without telling the mayor there.
But at the same point, you've got other instances of the Biden administration putting migrants on planes and buses months ago, year ago, doing this exact same thing in the cover of night. No news reports about it. It's all hush-hush. But the moment that Greg Abbott or Ron DeSantis does it and puts them into some prominent places and does it in somewhat of a spectacular way to bring news headlines, all of a sudden it's inhumane and racist.
It's, you know, and the one thing that kills me is I in my back of my head, and I know this is just BS rhetoric, but wonder how many of them are pregnant looking for an abortion. We could have shipped them to Illinois. So.
Well, yeah, and I was looking at one of the governor's statements here talking about how a lot of these migrants are getting and seeking medical treatment, including prenatal treatment, and those who are pregnant and expecting getting proper treatment here in Illinois. And again, top of mind, these are human beings. They need to be treated with dignity. But I think that what's not treating them with dignity is just allowing them to come across the border, which is a very, very dangerous travel, a dangerous trek, and you got to take into account as well all the human trafficking that happens, from minors being trafficked to the cartels making incredible amounts of money to get people across the border. And while the Biden administration says the border's secure, how can you say the border's secure when you've got Chicago, Martha's Vineyard, Washington, D.C. complaining that they can't handle the influx of migrants when Texas is being flooded with them? All right. Appreciate everybody's calling in and kind of giving me some insight into some of the top things that made news from the past week. Much more coming up here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News.